Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Gaming at the Round Table. I'm Crystal with Maverick and JoJo. So for this one, I'm actually just gonna straight pass it right on over to JoJo.
So today I'm going to talk about something I'm excited about that's coming up, and it's the anthology series that's coming to Prime, and it's Secret Level, and it was made by the people that made the series. I'm blanking on it now. Why is it always right when you start
Black
the
Mirror or
brain?
something like that, maybe?
They
There's
made
two of
another
them.
anthology series that was on Netflix, not on Prime before. I guess
Love and
Love and
Robots.
Death,
Death, Love, and
Love
Robots,
and
something like
Robots.
that.
Love, and Robots. There we go.
Yeah.
So this anthology, why I'm excited about it is because it's molding their episodes around games and gaming stories, which is, I think, a massive thing that if you think about movies and TV shows from the past, again, for the older generation, a lot of series and things like that were based off of books and the stories that came from books and things like that. So for me, this kind of like nods at the fact that games and their story building have come so far along that they can make it into episodic stuff like this, which they've been doing more and more. But for this, I'm extra excited about it. It's going to be 15 episodes, and it's going to be based around Armored Core. I'm going to just rattle off. There's one that I'm going to read off last, and it's second on the list, but I'm going to read it off last, and you'll see why. So first up is Armored Core. Then there's Crossfire, which I'm not really sure about. Dungeons and Dragons, which that I think goes to Stranger Things. I think they've kind of exploded the world of Dungeons. It was there before, for all fairness to the people there, but I think it made it cool. And I think that's something we'll talk about a little bit further on in the episode. The next one up is Exodus, which it's supposed to be based around a science fiction RPG I haven't heard of. Honor of you have? And then there's Honor of Kings, Mega Man, which is that goes back to.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
I knew Mav would like that one.
I should have brought my Mega Man toy. Stuffy.
New World Aeternum. Sorry,
it's hard to say that one, but that's the like expansion or second edition of the Amazon game.
Yeah, it's an MMORPG.
Yeah.
And we have Outer Worlds 2, Pac-Man, which I'm curious how that's going to work. PlayStation, so there's multiple from PlayStation. So there's God of War, Ghost of Tsushima. Sorry again if I'm saying that wrong. Then there's Spelunky, which
it's actually a popular game. Yeah.
Then there's Sifu, Unreal Tournament, which I think that's again like Mega Man, where it's tying back to like the old school gamers. Because if you play a shooter today, it all came from Unreal Tournament. Like that whole multiplayer that started in that. Then there's Warhammer, which I'm really excited because it looks really nice. And again, I think it's a good tie into that realm of building worlds that I was mentioning before. And the last one I'm going to mention, and I want to get your opinions on this, they have a full episode for Concord.
Really? No wonder IGN didn't like Secret Level. That's so funny. Well, yeah. Okay, so here's my off-the-cuff reaction. This thing was probably in development way before Concord actually released.
Yeah.
And so Concord released, and they're like, well, we're not going to like scrap a whole episode of 15 episodes.
You know,
and who knows? Maybe they'll have like a redemption arc. Like unlikely.
All right, I don't know that they're gonna pull another. What is it? Cyberpunk.
No way. Like there's no way. It's not.
They're not gonna be able to.
I feel like they should have just waited for this to come out and then release Concord, so that way.
Even then, I don't know that it would have helped them, considering how bad
it did. Yeah.
What's interesting to me is that there are a lot of titles on that are actually really exciting to me. And I've only seen a couple of the previews for the episodes. The Mega Man one I was excited about, and the Armored Core looks...
That was the one that for whatever reason, the list didn't show it. Because I have another list that had that one, the first one. But I'm going to read off the owners of it because I think they deserve there's Epic Games, Games Workshop, Obsidian, Massmouth, Slow Clap, Sony Interactive. So PlayStation, Sony Interactive outright just got a couple episodes. They're just like, all right, we're gonna take
they're
those.
huge. Yeah.
Bandai Namco, Amazon Games, Capcom, Teamy Studios.
Oh, that's
I heard that side.
Mega Man Capcom. I was like, what? Yeah.
See,
Wizards of the Coast. Which, go for it.
Imagine, just think of it. How cool would it be if Apex did that?
They could have done so much with that, and they. But that's a whole nother episode on.
You listed Epic Games. Now, I didn't realize that
because Epic Games is Unreal Tournament. Because of the Unreal Engine.
Oh.
A lot of people forget that correlation between
Epic. A lot of
Epic
people weren't alive to know.
It's a big. Then there's From Software is the last one, and then again Sony Interactive has Concord, which because it's funny because they have the brand and then they have the owners. So they have the brand, which is PlayStation, and it's owned by Sony Interactive, and then they have brand Concord, owned by Sony Interactive. I'm like, I don't know how Sony was like, oh yeah, we're still gonna keep our name on this.
Well, they can't.
For those that can't see, Crystal is laughing extremely hard right now and trying to hide it.
Bro, it's insane to me that why? They're wishing they could like take that back. They wish that they could just like make it disappear, and now it's gonna be part of a show too. They tried to cover up that it ever existed.
That's one of the worst mulligans I've probably ever seen. But I'll just leave it at that.
I want to see the season, not that particular episode, but I'm going to watch the whole season, and we'll see how it goes. Some of the other ones looked really cool. Now, the review we were all talking about prior to the podcast gave it, I think, a 5 on IGN, something like that.
Yep.
And it seemed to me, and I don't read reviews, like in-depth reviews on anything. Movies, TV shows, games, nothing. Maybe I'll look at a score, right? But I will not read reviews because I don't like spoilers. And I'm the kind of person who, if you're like, well, the main character on the 10th episode, he's talking to somebody. I'm like, now I know the main character's alive until the 10th episode. Like anything you say is a spoiler in my mind. That being said, the description that they gave of their review, which was only a few sentences, just to like, here's our score. It seemed obvious to me that IGN does not like anthologies to begin with. They said the limitations of the genre. So, first of all, I take IGN with a grain of salt. I take it with an extra grain of salt when in the first few sentences they're like the limitations of this genre. That tells me you're not looking at it.
That person didn't like tea, for example, so they're rating
right. It's like us
like,
in our
like
prior
tea.
podcast. People had issue with us. I gotta not curse. Not particularly favoring Balatro for the upcoming Game Awards. We don't like card games, and we also aren't a huge fan of like poker in general, like legit card games in real life. And I'm certainly most of us aren't fans of card games in games. There's a couple that I think are cool, but it's not our cup of tea.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Right. You don't play
cool.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
I don't, but it's cool.
It's cool because you watch the show. Stop contradicting me. I'm trying to make a point.
Yes.
Well, for the second part of this and kind of leading into the second part of this podcast is I wanted to mention the cast and kind of how it's, again, changing the landscape of, I think, not only acting, but just how actors are crossing into multiple mediums where it's more common because it's always happened and people don't really realize it, which I'm sure one of you guys is going to touch on. But I'm going to read off the cast real quick and then you guys can take off with it. So there's Arnold Schwarzenegger, Patrick Schwarzenegger, Kevin Hart, Heaven Hart, I'm assuming that's his daughter, Keanu Reeves, Gabrielle
I feel like we
Luna.
should just take these almost one at a time, except I don't know Gabrielle.
Then there's Ariana Greenblatt, she's been in a lot of stuff, Star Wars, like she's real big in sci-fi. And I'm really sorry if I say this name wrong, Out of the way. Again, I'm sorry.
Out of the way.
Adelaway Akawino. Again, I'm sorry. I'm going to just leave it at that. And then there's Michael Beach, Emily Swallow, Claudia Dommett, Tamora Morrison, Timor Morrison. That's Boba Fett and all the clones in Star Wars. Ricky Whittle, Meryl Dundridge, Clive Standen, and Laura Bailey. Some of those I haven't quite heard of. Again, I've a big part of a lot of sci-fi, so some of these stick out right away for me. But you guys have other names that, again, have crossed into the gaming realm, and how gaming is now a part of the bigger things of TV, movies, all this stuff.
Will you repeat the first few names on that list?
It was Arnold and his son Patrick Schwarzenegger. Then there's Kevin Hart and his daughter.
I feel like we should stop there for a moment because that's like a whole section. We had pre-generated lists. Are any of those people on your guys' lists? Okay, I want to admit.
Not mine.
Okay, cool. So I feel like Arnold is the perfect example of a huge celebrity, regardless of, politics, right? He is definitely a huge celebrity and has been for a long time. Terminator obviously being the biggest throw. There have been Terminator games, but it's interesting because he's in this, and I don't recall you listing off Terminator as one of the games in the episodes. So he's in there as something else. And it's clearly gaming focused. So I think that's a perfect example of a celebrity that's actively endorsing the normalization of gaming, or just getting a piece of the pie. Who cares, right? But that's not his game. You know what I mean? If it was Terminator, I don't feel like I'd even mention anything because, he's selling his movie, right? But since that's not one of them, he's clearly like, okay, this is the way to the future. Gaming is here for everybody, and it's part of entertainment, and I'm an entertainer, and we're going to do this. And then Kevin Hart is clearly an entertainer. He's a comedian.
With his name, I want to mention something about this list of actors. When you think of voice actors from back in the day, and I'm saying back in the day, air quoting, Schwarzenegger would make sense because a lot of sci-fi actors would cross over into TV or games, and it was pretty much norm, and people would consider them to do that, especially with sci-fi. It happened a lot. Now, if you look at mainstream, Kevin Hart would be the other one because that's a comedian. So you wouldn't necessarily associate them with voice acting. So for him to be on there, I think that's cool. I think he kind of did it for his daughter, but I'll leave it at that.
He does some voice acting for
he's really gotten into it, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying if you looked at from before to now, I think most voice actors from back in the day were sci-fi related.
Mm-hmm. So the famous example is Luke Skywalker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where he was.
A lot of people won't know that.
Well,
he was the voice. Yeah, I'll tell. I didn't know if you wanted to. That's why I was waiting.
I think he was on your list.
So he's the voice actor for the Joker on the Batman series for TV, and nobody knew that.
For a long time,
that series ran for a while. Even when it came back out and was redone, still a lot of people didn't realize it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people know it now.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to your smartphone being glued to your existence, I would wager not a lot of people knew.
We're talking about Mark Hamill specifically, right?
Yes, yeah. Mark Hamill.
He's played a lot of characters in video games.
A lot.
And he's also voice acted several people as well. Not just video games. I mean, shows.
Yeah, because that was actually one of the people that I had on my list was Mark Hamill, and I was doing a lot of research into him, and I was surprised to see him in some top name games like Spyro and Crash Bandicoot. So he's played in a lot.
That's awesome. I also didn't realize he was in your list. Apologies.
Mm-hmm. But speaking of lists, there's actually somebody else I wanted to speak about, which is Norman Reedus. I think I said that right.
Is that the guy from The Walking Dead?
Yep.
That is.
Okay, yeah.
So he was actually like kind of like Keanu Reeves was for Cyberpunk. He was the face of a game, Death Stranding.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which was a very strange game for the record, like super strange.
Yeah, I heard. I never actually played it because at the time I used to work at GameStop and I used to have people come in and talk to me about games. And I remember somebody coming in and their explanation was it was like a sci-fi game where there's like crazy things that happen, but you're like a mail delivery person. And I was like, you didn't really sell me on that. I think I'm just gonna nod. But it was such a huge named game because of the fact that Norman Reedus was on it, and he was so big at the time on The Walking Dead. So a lot of people were like very interested in that to give it a go. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that game would have sold nearly as well as however it did without his face on the cover. Because the description was not, it was strange. And then people started playing it and they were like, you ever do acid? That's kind of what we assume the writers were doing when they wrote this. It's super strange.
Some people do different things for writer's block. We're not saying that's for everyone, but some people do different things.
There's also a different way that I've noticed that some celebrities have had their hands in video games. As of lately, I've heard of different like celebrities that are streaming.
Yeah,
which is pretty
cool. A lot
of
sports players do it too.
Yeah, one of the big names that I know, since I brought up Apex earlier, is Post Malone. He streamed Apex Legends and then ended up doing a deal with Apex Legends where it was like a whole event of skins that he like helped designed or whatever. And then he actually helped create one of the best events that Apex has ever had, which is 3 Strikes.
Yeah.
So celebrities are not just dabbling in it, they actually are passionate about whatever games that they're talking about and doing. Some of them, not all of them.
Now I know how Joe feels every time we talk about like PlayStation exclusives. Every time you guys are talking about Apex, I'm like, yeah, cool. I don't play.
Well, I mean, how about this one? Fortnite.
Yeah. Speaking of Fortnite.
Think of all the different skins with that, right?
Yeah, tons. And there's a lot of famous people in Fortnite. A lot. It's like part of their
it's
income.
hard to count.
Yeah.
So let me think. Fortnite. Oh, Terry Crews, big, jacked, friendly guy. He's famous for lots of things. He was in. He was fully motion. I forget what it's called.
Mocap,
motion capture rigged for. I think it was called Crackdown 3.
Yeah.
And that was an Xbox game. At least I'm pretty sure it was. And there was an interview he did with Esquire, so anyone can feel free to look it up, where he talks about he liked games when he was really young. And then, he joined the NFL. So obviously there was a time period where he was like nose to the grind wheel. Then after the NFL, he got in on big shows and movies and all sorts of stuff, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Terry Crews was in the NFL?
Yeah.
Why do you think he's huge?
All I know him for, like really know him for, is Making My Way Downtown, okay? Where he's singing the song in the car.
He's got a great sense of humor.
No? Do neither of you know that scene?
No. And I've watched
he's talking about I know which movie you're talking about.
I was anyway, so upset.
I don't watch a lot of things.
Oh my god.
So you made me lose my train of thought.
Sorry.
I'll take this one for 2 seconds.
Sure.
One of my favorite actors, again, besides anything else, Ron Perlman. He's done a ton of game stuff. A ton. And again, I'm a huge Halo fan. He was in Halo. He was in Batman, Hellboy, obviously.
Yeah.
Afro Samurai. There's a bunch of stuff that he was in. Afro Samurai is an anime, but they did make different iterations of it. Call of Duty, Conan, like Fallout, tons of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Another guy that was in tons of stuff. He's since passed away, but Lance Reddick, a lot of people know him from John Wick. It was, I wouldn't call him like a butler, but he was like the
doorman.
Yeah, thank you. TV series Lost, The Wire. He's actually apparently in like a ton, like dozens of movies and TV shows and all sorts of
Destiny.
Stuff.
He was
yes.
a massive part of Destiny.
Exactly. Destiny and Destiny 2, Quantum Break, Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West, I saw him in like a trailer, so I don't know like what time period that was in his life, but that's the most recent version of Horizon. And then he, I think, has a posthumous role in Hellboy Web of Weird. So he's been in games, several games, huge games, and huge parts of the media. So it's really cool seeing that. I think that kind of speaks to how normal everything is now. If you're in entertainment now, you're practically in gaming. Even singers, right? Who did I just see on Fortnite like yesterday?
There's a bunch.
Yeah, basically every famous singer you can think of that's wildly popular has been in Fortnite or probably will be shortly.
A lot of them have also been, and I don't want to just speak on Fortnite, but like they've been in Call of Duty as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
I've seen like, what is it? Nicki Minaj, I think, is on there.
Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg is great. I love Snoop Dogg in both Fortnite and
Fortnite and yep.
That's great.
Robin Williams is another person that has since passed away, who's a famous comedian for anyone who somehow doesn't know who Robin Williams is.
Did you mention Lance Reddick?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's the one that you said passed away?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He was Silence in Horizon Forbidden West. He's a huge part in that game.
Yes.
Yeah, he was
massive.
He's been in gaming for quite some time.
As the audience may be able to tell, we didn't share our list ahead of time, so we're actually exchanging information here. Robin Williams named his daughter Zelda, which, unless you've been living under a rock, is from the Zelda series.
Mm-hmm.
And he has spoken previously about how games like not only were entertaining and some of them actually inspired him enough to name his daughter after one. And according to my Googling around, he's also been on record saying that he was a fan of World of Warcraft, of Call of Duty, and what was the other one? Portal. So he clearly gamed and was a big fan. And he was open about that fact too. I mean, you have to be if you're naming your child after one. So that is a little bit older of a reference, but still, I felt like, especially for his era, when he first made it big, gaming was still kind of you punch the nerd in the glasses kind of thing, and he was very open about it regardless. So those were all three of my examples, but do you guys have ones you didn't get to cover?
I have Keith David, who's been in everything. He was in Disney movies, TV shows, you name it. He was in over 300 roles. Like, he's huge. He did the Arbiter in Halo, which is how I really picked up on his voice. He was in Spawn. He was in so many different things. Like, I could sit here there's a list, and it's way too long. But he was in everything. Like, that's a voice that, if you've played games, you've probably heard him and didn't realize it. Like, that's how big of a voice actor he is.
A lot of people... Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I think something we each mentioned here and there was the idea that a lot of these famous people are also doing mocap, where they're making games where they are the person in the game. Keanu Reeves with Cyberpunk, and we mentioned a couple others, Terry Crews. I feel like that's the next step. You're not just a voice in the game trying to get a gig or something you think is easy. It's no, you're presenting yourself as fully endorsing whatever that product is. You may as well be in the movie called whatever it is, right? So to do that for gaming is the same thing, especially now that it's $1 billion industry. Crystal, you're going to say something?
Yes, I'm going to talk about the last person that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to wrap it up for us since we're kind of running out of time here. But I do feel obligated to mention my husband, Henry Cavill. So he's into gaming. And he's in The Witcher and did all that kind of stuff and
a lot of plastic surgery.
Don't talk about him like that. I have him put up on my screen. He's a beautiful man. Anyways, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Gaming at the Round Table. What?
You can't just say he's in things.
He's in things. I had to mention him. He was an obligation.
He's a very big advocate for gaming as like a whole. So it's not just
he likes Warhammer and The Witcher.
But and he's in game-related things.
Like, that's the important part of the conversation.
I just
he got the googly moogly eyes and was like, Henry Cavill. He's gaming.
He's enough on his own. Everybody knows who Henry Cavill is. Come on. If you don't, then I don't know what to tell you.
Fair enough.
Okay. Can I do the wrap-up now? You okay with it?
Be quiet. Sorry.
All right. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Gaming at the Round Table. I am Crystal with Maverick and JoJo. Bye.
Later.